in the heart of the Arabian desert lies a hidden, ancient realm shrouded in mystery and paradox. For over 1,000 years, this wearied kingdom sat hidden from the world, empty and silent, save for the delicate sand being swept across its ghostly passages. The quiet solitude of a forgotten empire echoes through the narrow canyons as she sits waiting to be awoken from her deep slumber. In 1812, her moment of awakening arrives. Since being rediscovered by the modern world, we have been humbled by our misconceptions about this city of stone. A barren landscape once thought to be merely a hollow city of tombs was, in fact, a wealthy, thriving metropolis. Despite sitting in the middle of one of the most unforgiving climates in the world, they skillfully harnessed nature's most vital resource to create a lush, artificial oasis at the crossroads of international trade. For over 400 years, this city of contradictions flourished as a symbol of ingenuity and power before finally succumbing to the sandstorms of time. This is the lost city of Petra.
This place, it was part of the ancient biblical kingdom of Edom. And it's mentioned in the Bible because Moses, he was been here with the Israelites, and he did two things. The miracle of the Moses springs, it happened here in Petra. And the other thing, he buried his brother Aaron inside the site. We have Mount Aaron, and at the top of it, still till nowadays, we have the grave of Aaron, the brother of Moses. Nabateans, they are migrants from northern part of Saudi, but their ancient origins, it can be related to Yemen. So they came from Yemen to Saudi, and then they settled in this part of Jordan because, it's a theory, they found it easy to establish a new kingdom over the ruins of Edom. Because Edom, during the 5th century, it was burned to the ground. The exact size of nowadays Petra, according to the UNESCO, is 250 square kilometers. Now, what we have uncovered is not more than 10%. They stayed here around 12 centuries, and they did many things. Still, Petra is covered. When you have a big source of water, you can have a civilization. Like the Nile, we have the pharaohs. Like Euphoria and Tigris, we have Mesopotamia. And here in Petra, we have the springs of Moses as a source of water here. And that's why I think we had Petra.
You're in the desert, 6 inches of rainfall a year. They were able to control that water. They took that water by means of collection. Also, you'll see the water channels running down. This was the main importance. They could trap on all those surrounding rocks, all the water coming down, not a drop would hit the ground. It would travel into these channels and go. So they really laid out this beautifully. They made piping back in the time, 1,000 years before Christ. Beautiful pipes. They found a remnant of a 16-foot pipe with a 7-inch diameter.
Made from clay and ceramic mixed with pottery, so they can close any hole if there's any leak. and it's like pieces so they can make the maintenance process easier.
From this, they were able to determine they did over 12 million gallons of water a day flowing into Petra. Enough to survive 100,000 people. The most ever living there, 30,000 people. With this extra water, they were able to use it to get the traders. But once you have water, you can also then do cereals. Once you have cereals, you can domesticate animals. So they had everything the traders needed. But the traders also had what they needed, because they would do a tax on them, on what they were carrying. So they were able to obtain great things, and with this, they were able to obtain power. With that power, they built that magnificent city.
I've heard about Petra over the decades, and it was one of my must-sees, was on my bucket list, something I absolutely had to visit. And so with this cruise, coming to Aqaba and being able to visit Petra, and that was really what attracted me to come on this. And to me, this is the highlight of the cruise.
As you come into Petra, you'll notice there's a few tombs on the outside. And you notice a wide open area, and you see the hills surrounding it. You're going to be led through an area, and you're going to see a small crack within the rocks. This is called the Seek. It travels about 1.6 kilometers, 1 mile. It gets as narrow as 20 feet once inside. Some places you can't even see the sky when you look up.
It in itself is really just so beautiful. These towering rock walls both sides, and it's a sinuous path, and the sunlight is playing on the top of the rock walls, and the light changes as you walk through, and you come ever closer, and then maybe widens out. There's some palms, and then closes in a bit narrow again, and this sense of expectation that you're approaching the main part of this 2,000-year-old city.
You're going to see what's called the fish. You're going to see the carvings in the wall. And all of a sudden your guide's going to ask you to stop.
And then he said, now, look straight ahead. And there, through just the narrow of part of the chasm of the Seek, there was the treasury.
I have never imagined that in Jordan we have such a beautiful facade like the treasury. It's like a huge painting. It's just magnificent. Yeah. The moment I saw this, till nowadays it's unforgettable.
You could never really understand and appreciate how beautiful and mind-blowing this place is going to be.
I'm proud. I'm proud of being part of this.
Now the treasury is a building that's done in the heyday. The heyday was about 100 years before Christ starting and ran for a good 100 years. And this heyday, about 86 BC to 25 AD, is when the treasury was constructed. So it was a very long construction. When you see all the details, it's magnificent now, but how stunning it must have been back at the time of Christ.
It's beyond comprehension really as how these people back in those ages were able to achieve this.
They would first build a ledge. When they built the ledge, from the ledge they would do the outer facade. Then they would cut into the rock and build the tombs. They would remove the dirt. They would use the large stones, flatten them out to make the bed basically for the tomb. So very ingenious in that way.
They lived in the desert and they knew how to treat the sandstone. I think the experience with the carvings, it came from Saudi. Because in Saudi we have a place similar to Petra but smaller, and we have over there the same carvings, like copy-paste. But we have just theories. We know that they use chisels, small hammers, excavators to take out the sand, and that's it. All theories.
It's interesting when you think of this area, you think of Egypt, Napoleon's troops finding the Rosetta Stone, being able to unlock all the writings of Egypt. There isn't a Rosetta Stone. There isn't many writings at all about Petra. That's why you'll have guides say that possibly this could be a tomb, this could be a dwelling, this could be used for that and that. There really isn't a full documentation. So I think it lends more magic to the area because it is a mystery. I think if we could explain everything like that, you'd forget it. Now when you walk through, even the top scientists have to wonder when they look at something, why? Why is this?
When you walk through the Sikh, you can feel how great is the Mother of Nature. But you can feel like you are going back in history once you step into the theater. There you can feel that you are going back in time because you can see settlements, graves, temples, churches, archive, a court, and a huge basin. You can imagine how active was their life.
One factor that's very interesting also is the city center. That's the colonnaded streets. That's where the fountain is. The Romans expanded the fountain even more. And getting there and seeing that, when you're looking at that, you're looking at a center of a city. And you'll understand that it did operate as a city. We look at it as a treasure chest, let's say, of the tombs and all the things around it. But when you're in that city heart, you know it's a city.
Their social life, it was very, very improved. But not like the way we are thinking that they were nomads and Bedouins. No, it wasn't like this. It was very strict and complicated and organized, and they had laws and punishments. For example, if you are like, let's say, a professional trader and you are making good money, then there is a law to punish you if you waste your fortune or your money on the stupid things, let's say. So they were strict with this thing. Now, during the wars of expanding the kingdom, a legionnaire, he was leading a brave soldiers. He died in a war, and also the king, he died in that war. Now, to honor the king, the Nabateans, they carved the monastery, the biggest facade in Petra. You can reach it after you walk 5 kilometers, and then you have to climb up 1,000 steps, and then you can see the monastery. Now, the monastery is the biggest facade, and it's 4 times bigger than the treasury. So to honor that king, we have the monastery. Now to honor the legionnaire and the legion, we have the urn tomb. So maybe when you made it up, you found that there's like arches. Now those arches were the graves of the soldiers. The grave itself at the top, it was the grave of the legionnaire. So they died at the same time, the same battle, and the Nabateans, they did those two monuments so they can honor those, let's say, soldiers. The Nabateans, they were, beside being like professional sculptors, they were traders, and they made it everywhere. They made it to China, India, Russia. They just made it everywhere. And we are 100% sure, now it's not a theory, it's a fact. Because, for example, in Italy, we found Nabatean temples and Nabatean statues with Nabatean carvings inside.
Also, they were known to tax the vessels coming into the Red Sea. If they really liked what the vessels had, they were known to take the vessels coming into the Red Sea. But the main thing they controlled and the money came from was the trade of incense. You're looking at about 100 years before Christ when their real power took hold. They were the wealthiest city in the world, they feel, at that time, mostly from the trade just of the aspect of the incense. The Romans first came in about 64 BC, and that was Pompeii. Then about 106 AD was really the taking over, and that was by the Trajan himself. Slowly they were getting around the area. It was a very non-conflict, but the Romans wanted more and more territory. So they wanted to make it part of the Roman Legion of Syria. And then they stopped the minting of coins. They stopped the expansion of the Nabateans. They actually slowly suffocated their society and took it over as a Roman society. In 423 AD, very bad droughts, people were suffering. It was a Syrian monk who came in, and he said, if you convert to Christianity, it'll rain. It rained. Full conversion of the area to Christianity, and that's when, about 423, the starting of the church was built.
Petra had witnessed 3 earthquakes, 343, and there's another one, the 2nd century, and 747, 8th century.
So you have lack of water, trade routes being disrupted, and then an earthquake. You had the decline of the area. It was basically undiscovered by Europeans at that time. There was a Swiss explorer by the name of Burckhardt. In 1812, he's the one who is known to have found it. It's very interesting how he found it. He knew as a European, he just couldn't come in and ask questions. Nobody would do anything for him. He studied the tenets of Islam. He learned all this, had it down. He came in, he passed himself off as a Muslim from India. But he heard about the prophet Aaron, and he heard about the prophet's tomb, and he heard it's just past Petra. So he said he wanted to find and see the tomb, so they took him. And as they took him through Petra, and he couldn't react. To me, that's fascinating to see that beauty and just go, eh. But then he wrote about it. In the 1820s, it was published throughout the areas, and more travelers came.
I felt while I was there visiting Petra that everyone else also had this sense of wonder at this place. And I can hardly believe I'm there seeing this, and other people was the same. It was a barely suppressed excitement. It's something I don't know that I've quite experienced anywhere else, and people were almost talking to anyone, to strangers.
You've heard about the great Egyptian civilizations, the great Roman civilizations, the Etruscans pre-Roman, but I didn't know much about the Nabateans. And when you leave Petra, you know them. You understand. You know the stonemasons, the architects. You know they knew how to build. How they learned this so quickly, who knows? You walk away with a great appreciation of Nabateans. Now to me, when I think of the great people, the power people of the world, Nabateans are right up on top.
At the end of the day, we had such a sense of accomplishment that we had gone to there and we walked right as far as it was possible to walk and managed to get back, although we did decide to hire donkeys. But I really don't know that that was any more relaxing than walking, because we had to hang on to these donkeys. But we just felt superb in it, and it really was worth the effort. And I mean, some people felt they could only go as far as the Treasury, but I still think that they probably got as much a sense of achievement as we did. I think everyone gets their own sense of achievement.
With today's Petra, with the Arab Spring a few years back, you're looking since 2010 about a 50% decline in the people coming into Petra, which is a decline in revenues. I'm hoping this decline doesn't continue, because you won't have the excavations. You won't have the continuing discoveries that are there. They know they're there. They're waiting to unfold. History is waiting to come out of the ground there.
I want to be optimistic, but the situation around is still not stable. So the future of Petra is depending on the situation around. We wish the best for everyone and for the site, yes.
There could be such jewels there, still waiting to be discovered, and that will add to the knowledge of the people. I mean, what's there is stunning, but yeah, we really don't know.
They just found one. Who knows what they can find if they continue with the funds. So let's hope peace does come to the area, if stability comes in, and more people are able to discover this beautiful ancient wonder.